Paula Acosta, according to information from her personal file, was born in the late 70s in the province of Córdoba, in the central region of Argentina. There are no special details about the woman's life, but it is known that her close relatives highly appreciated her kindness, diligence, and devotion to her family. Between the late 90s and the beginning of the new millennium, Paula had two sons, whom she named Augustina Thomas. The father of the boys practically did not participate in their upbringing, and soon the spouses separated. Left alone, the woman decided to do everything possible to provide her sons with a decent life. Trying to earn as much as she could, she worked tirelessly in a busy schedule from Monday to Friday. In addition to her main job, Paula worked part-time at a weekend fair where she sold various goods. In late 2011, when she was just over 30, she met an Argentinian man named Gonzalo Martin Lizarralde, who was a few years younger than her, on the internet. He was born in the early 80s in Córdoba, but was on vacation in Mexico when he met Paula. Gonzalo followed in his parents' footsteps and started running his own business. The family owned a bread company and a sandwich factory. The young people maintained a long-distance relationship for several months, until Gonzalo returned to the South American country in early 2012. They saw each other very rarely, no more than 5 times in a couple of months. In March 2012, Paula went on vacation to Brazil, and when she returned, she realized that she was expecting a baby. Apparently, she had gotten pregnant during one of her previous encounters with Gonzalo. The woman immediately contacted him to inform him of her situation and ask for financial help for the future baby. But the man doubted the veracity of her words and said that he was not ready to take on this kind of responsibility. Then Paula decided to stop all communication with him. Gonzalo responded in the same way and stopped calling his partner. After a while, the woman changed her mind and tried to get him back. Obsessed with the desire to find a man, Paula looked everywhere for opportunities to contact him and finally got his work phone number. Unfortunately, he remained in his opinion. He was not interested in her ex-girlfriend or her unborn child. Paula didn't stop there. The obsession to reunite with the former did not give her rest. After his second refusal, the woman began to look for other options and got the phone number of Gonzalo's sister. Calling her, Paula said that she was pregnant for several months, and the girl gave her brother's contacts. After meeting him, the woman demanded to take part in the birth of the baby and take responsibility for him. Despite entreaties, she again faced rejection. At the end of 2012, Paula gave birth to a baby girl, whom she named Martina. 2 years later, she went to a family counseling center that advocated for children. The woman hoped that with the help of official representatives she could solve her problem. Gonzalo and Paula were summoned to a hearing where the young mother stated that it was her decision not to give Martina her father's surname and not to allow him to participate in her daughter's life and upbringing. All she wanted was financial assistance, as she was a single mother of 2 teenagers and had very little money. The first decision officials made was to have Gonzalo take a DNA test. This would confirm or rule out his parentage to the girl. The test result came in on August 20, 2014 and confirmed that the man was indeed Martina's biological father. Once paternity was established, both parties came to an agreement. The man was ordered to make monthly payments of 1,400 Argentine pesos to Paula, which at the time was equivalent to about $160. He was also ordered to assume payment of health insurance. The transfer of alimony was to be made through Gonzalo's attorney. Paula therefore had to go to the office every month to pick up the money she was entitled to. The first appointment was scheduled for Friday, September 12th. But on the evening of that day, the lawyer contacted Gonzalo and informed him that Paula had some business to attend to and would not be able to come up to collect the money. The woman then contacted her former partner and asked if Gonzalo could bring the necessary amount of money on his own. They agreed to see each other on Wednesday, September 17th, at around 6 o'clock in the evening. However, when the man texted Paula that he was going to come, he received no reply. In the meantime, his friend Nicholas came over and they went to the store to get groceries. Upon returning home, at 9 p.m., Gonzalo received a text message from Paula in which she claimed that she had not had a chance to respond to him earlier because her phone was dead. The man drove to her home, located on Martina Garcia Street, in the San Martin neighborhood, taking with him money and a gift for the child. Parking in front of the building, he asked Paula to get out with the girl. From that moment on, Paula's relatives lost any contact with her and Martina. Gonzalo got into the car and drove to his home, in the neighborhood of San Salvador, to his new girlfriend and friend Nicholas. It should be noted that the man's partner was already 3 months pregnant, and Gonzalo assured her that the paternity acknowledgement document was not legally binding and that Martina was not his daughter. Hours later, Paula's loved ones became seriously concerned and went to the police to report her missing. However, officials immediately ruled out the possibility of a disappearance, expressing doubt that something had happened to the woman, the girl. They said that, most likely, Paula simply decided to leave with her daughter without warning anyone about it. Their assumption did not come true. On September 21st, a local resident heard crying coming from a sewer located at the corner of a bakery called Antonello, for which Gonzalo's relatives were making deliveries. It was in this sewer, 80 hours after her disappearance, that Paula's lifeless body was found, along with her daughter, who was badly injured and screaming desperately. Martina was rushed to Children's Hospital and placed in the intensive care unit for several weeks. Her condition was assessed as extremely serious. There were distinct cuts on the child's neck and chest. Hypothermia, severe dehydration, and a fractured hip were also diagnosed. Because of Martina's age, doctors were high on the chance of a safe recovery. Nestor Parati, the head physician of the hospital, prescribed special treatment to improve her kidney condition and antibiotics. He made this decision based on the fact that the girl had inadvertently spilled water from the sewage system and that her wounds had been in contact with contaminated water for 3 days while she was in the sewer. This greatly increased the risk of infection and further complications. On the same day, September 21st, the prosecutor's office informed Marina Costo, Paula's sister, that her niece had been found and was already receiving proper medical attention. Marina knew nothing about what had happened until she watched a newscast that reported her sister's tragic death. The autopsy results showed that Paula had been shot 5 times with a short-barreled weapon. The bullets hit different parts of her body. The woman lost a large amount of blood, but despite this, she was conscious for some time until her heart stopped. On September 23, 2014, Paula's funeral was held at the Parque Azul Cemetery located on Route 5 in Gordo. After reviewing phone correspondence, investigators determined that Gonzalo was the last person to see the mother and daughter before they went missing. The man first testified in court in late September, 2 weeks after the tragic event. He claimed he simply handed over the money and immediately left. Gonzalo's personal lawyer Walter Ferrero told the media that his client had an alibi that night. Therefore, he cannot be held responsible for the death of his ex-girlfriend and the attack that nearly cost little Martini's life. Nevertheless, the man's van was thoroughly inspected, including analyzing the surface of the seats, and what the experts discovered cast doubt on his innocence. The results showed that there were traces of blood on the back of the vehicle that matched Paula's blood type. Gonzalo was arrested in early October 2014 on charges of manslaughter as well as third-degree murder. Sister Marina, not hiding her displeasure, spoke to reporters. She made it clear that her family does not agree with the decision of the case. According to her, the prosecutor who took the report on the disappearance of her sister and niece was one of the main culprits behind the fatal outcome. Although the prosecutor had already been dismissed from the case, Marina demanded his immediate resignation due to his negligence and said that if he had taken the report seriously, Paula would be alive now. On September 23, 2015, a year after the missing were found in the sewer, the trial against Gonzalo began with a jury trial in addition to official state judges. According to court security officials, the courtroom was packed. On the second day of the trial, new witnesses came forward, including an employee of Gonzalo's family business who testified that the van used for work had been taken out ahead of time, which was a day after the mother and daughter disappeared. The witness also stated that they were driving their usual route that evening, delivering groceries, and stopped at Antonello's bakery as they should. Parking on the corner where Paula and Martina were later found, Gonzalo noted that there was a foul odor in that area. One of the most valuable testimonies of not only the second day but of the entire trial were the words of Nicholas, who admitted that Gonzalo had asked him to lie about where he was on the night of September 17, 2014. Also very important was the input of the doctor, a geneticist, who was responsible for conducting DNA analysis of the materials recovered from Gonzalo's van. The next persons to testify were an expert named Morocco and Sergeant Escordini, who took over the duties of inspecting the vehicle after it was impounded. The men explained that they found no chains, boxes, ropes, or condoms in the interior. They also noted the frequency of the van, which indicated that it had only recently been washed, and yet they were able to conduct more than 20 tests. On September 28, a hearing was held at which Gonzalo finally made a statement about the events of that tragic night. It was very brief. The man told the story of his acquaintance with Paula and their agreements regarding the child support he was to pay to his daughter. When questioned about the cleaning of the automobile, the defendant stated that because the vehicle was used to deliver goods, he washed it regularly. This statement added nothing new to the case, as Gonzalo was silent about the details of the bloody night, nor did he answer the questions he was asked. A few days later, another employee of Gonzalo's firm said that he was fired after he told authorities that the van had been washed twice that week, which was unusual. Also, the guy said Gonzalo asked him to wipe some red stains off the seats. Despite numerous pieces of evidence pointing to his involvement in the crime, the defendant never confessed to the brutal attack on Paula and Martina. The defense was convinced that there was no reason to consider the woman a victim of gender-based violence, especially since, according to relatives and friends of the deceased, Paula was a very strong and proud woman who would never tolerate humiliation or mistreatment by men. As of October 7, 2015, the last court session was held. At 10 a.m., the prosecutor read out the guilty verdict asking for a life sentence for Gonzalo, taking into account the nature of the crime and the circumstances under which it was committed. The prosecutor recalled that the perpetrator had carefully planned everything in advance and, under the pretext of meeting his daughter, had made sure that there were no strangers at the meeting with Paula. The representative of the prosecutor's office said that the difference in height and weight between Gonzalo and his victim had to be taken into account, which was important for the charge of premeditated assault. After 8 hours of deliberations and long deliberations, the jury unanimously decided that Gonzalo was guilty of the death of Paula Acosta and was also responsible for the assassination attempt on Martina, for which he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole. However, the jury did not agree with the fact of gender-based violence, despite the demands of the relatives of the deceased. After the announcement of the verdict, Gonzalo's lawyer expressed his disappointment at the outrage of the press and assured that sufficient grounds indicating Gonzalo's involvement in the murder had not been provided. He also observed that his ward was not obliged to fulfill any legal circumstance to Paula before stopping the fact of paternity. Marina also spoke to reporters, saying that even though they were not able to get the proper result in court that they were aiming for, Paula's relatives were satisfied with the verdict. In any case, they will continue to fight until they get the case of the deceased to be classified as femicide, which is gender murder. Unfortunately, troubles did not stop haunting the Acosta family after the incident. In March 2016, Sebastian, Marina and Paula's brother, was involved in a terrible car accident and died of severe head trauma. That same year, Luis Acosta, Paula's father, who fought alongside Marina for Gonzalo's life sentence, was charged with the murder of his girlfriend, whom he attacked in the street with a knife in his hands. The man received a 3-year prison sentence. Despite these events, Marina did not give up and made sure that Gonzalo's story did not end with his sentence alone. In 2017, almost 2 years after the trial, Marina, with the help of her family's lawyers, appealed the verdict. The Supreme Court opened a new hearing, during which the materials of the previous trial were scrutinized. The court ruled that it was indeed appropriate to charge Gonzalo with femicide. The argument in favor of this decision was that Gonzalo and Paula were not in a civil relationship, and the man had a deep hatred of the female sex. This event was a milestone in the consideration of such crimes, as it was the first time that the Supreme Court found a man guilty of gender-related murder. After that, things in the Acosta family began to gradually improve. On June 24, 2019, Marina posted on her social media accounts that she had gained legal custody of Martina, who was about 7 years old at the time. Her 2 other nephews, Augustine and Thomas, remained in her father's custody. In 2021, Paula's neighbor, who had previously refrained from speaking to authorities and never came to court hearings, decided to give his first testimony. He said that he was home at the time Paula and Gonzalo met in the courtyard of the building and heard them arguing loudly, but did not want to intrude on someone else's conversation. The neighbor admitted that he really regrets not having told about it earlier and blames himself for not intervening in their quarrel at that time. All that is known about Gonzalo's fate is that he was transferred from the Bauer prison to the Villa Maria prison. His term behind bars will expire on September 20, 2049, which means that by the time he can be released, he will be almost 70 years old. His parents sold their business and left the province of Córdoba, though they continued to visit their son regularly. Martina did not know the truth about her mother's death, as she was just a little girl at the time, and her relatives did not want to traumatize her. She underwent 3 operations and recovered for a long time. Her Aunt Marina, in turn, made every effort to keep Paula alive in the memory of the child. She often showed her niece pictures of her sister and told her how much her mother loved and cared for her daughter. However, what happened in 2014 changed life for the child forever. In 2021, Marina said she was honored to have the opportunity to raise and educate her niece, and she will do everything to make sure that, by reliving the trauma, it will not affect the girl's future life. Thank you for watching. I recommend checking out the other true crime stories as well. Click right now, and also don't forget to click on the bell not to miss new stories. See you soon. Take care.